The NFL Network is suspending 3 former players who turned analysts after they were named in a sexual harassment lawsuit. NFL Hall of Famer Marshall Faulk among the former players, Ike Taylor and Heath Evans. They were taken off the air after being named in a complaint by a former makeup artist for the league-owned network. 4 former NFL Network employees were also named in the suit. 2 former players, Donovan McNabb and Eric Davis, were suspended from their roles at ESPN. One executive, Eric Weinberger, was placed on indefinite leave from his role at The Ringer. That's a sports blog. And the 4th, Warren Sapp, was fired from the NFL Network in 2015 for soliciting a prostitute at the Super Bowl. CBS Sports Writer and the host of Reiter Than You, Bill Reiter, is here to discuss the suspensions. Boy, Bill, big names in football.
Big names, obviously ugly allegations, and talking to folks around the sports world a few weeks ago, there was a sense that obviously it was going to make its way to what we do for a living, that it's spread through different parts of American society, and here it is. I
mean, we saw the whole sphere changed with the allegations against Harvey Weinstein. We've seen media, we've seen the ballet, we've seen symphony. The fact that this is hitting the sports world, which is a male-dominated industry, what do you make of it? Is there a cultural shift happening at all?
Unfortunately, I think what I make of it is it's not a surprise to those of us that have come up in that world because, and again, don't want to paint everyone or even most people with that brush, but certainly there's behavior that goes on sometimes that you see in the sports media world that's not appropriate or that's off-putting or unsettling. But there's also names attached to these allegations of people I know. Donovan McNabb is actually, and it hits close to home for me. He's a friend. He's a former colleague. I consider him a guy that I have a lot of respect for. And how do you, like a lot of people in a lot of industries now, how do I sort of fix that and balance that with what we're hearing? So it's both not surprising, but for me, on a personal level, the names are shocking.
Yeah, you hear this over and over again. People who say, well, I know that person. It's kind of hard to accept that this is coming from them. You mentioned McNabb. Last year, a nominee. He was nominee for Hall of Fame, potentially this year as well. I mean, do you think this affects his chances, possibly?
I absolutely do. And the way that the Hall of Fame works in the National Football League is a series of representatives from each team who are the voters go into a room and they hash this out. It's a very close call. Donovan McNabb is a very, very marginal Hall of Famer. And if the allegations are true, you know, I'm not sure he doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, but it will absolutely take away, if it comes out that this is believable, from the people who will vote for him in that room. All it takes is 1 or 2 people to not be comfortable with the idea of a person who has done these sorts of things to not get in. And it's really striking because the first time I ever talked to Donovan McNabb, when we did know each other, he talked about the Hall of Fame, why he thought he belonged in, and how much it means to him. I think it'll have a huge impact when he's vetted again.
I mean, you look at Warren Sapp. You look at Marshall Faulk. I mean, these are people who are already in the Hall of Fame. I mean, could they be kicked out and have it revoked?
Man, so now we're getting to this territory that people have sort of discussed with things like baseball, and if we look back at PEDU sort of before it became a thing, and the shorter answer is we don't know yet. I find it very unlikely that will happen because people who vote for the Hall of Fame, people who run Hall of Fames, don't like the idea of basically changing history. But if you leave someone out, and it's an if, a Donovan McNabb, do you have to go back and sort of reevaluate the Warren Sapps and the Marshall Faulks? It's a really, really sticky question for Hall of Fame voters and for sports fans.
And what's exactly the litmus test for who makes it in, who gets rejected?
Is it based on field excellence? Are there things that happen off the field that are off-putting, that are morally reprehensible, that are unacceptable, that should exclude you, or should you just be judged based on what you did between the lines? It's a new and increasingly important conversation.
And is there a sense from your sources and the people you talk to that there could be more coming?
There is. And frankly, I mean, I've come up in this industry and I've seen things and know people in power who have acted in ways that are inappropriate. And I had a conversation with a buddy of mine. I mean, to out the person where you've seen this behavior, if I were to do that, you also out victims who don't necessarily want to come forward. So assuming that victims get more comfortable, assuming that there are people out there watching this who have been treated this way, and I've seen a couple in my own career, it would not shock me in my profession, and obviously we've seen in other professions, people coming forward. I think it's probably just the beginning.
Wow. Bill Reiter, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you on set.
You bet.